What if everything you have been told about losing weight is not just wrong, but is actually the reason you cannot lose it? Not slightly off, not outdated. Completely, fundamentally, biochemically wrong from the very beginning. There is a country right now with 125 million people where less than 5% of the population is obese. People live past 90 regularly there. They have sharp minds, lean bodies, and incredible energy well into old age. Metabolic disease, which is destroying the Western world, silently, barely exists there. That country is Japan. And the reason has nothing to do with what most people assume when they first hear that statistic. Before you say it, no, it is not genetics. It is not some extreme version of portion control. It is absolutely not because they eat less food overall. The Japanese actually consume more carbohydrates per capita than most Western nations do. White rice appears at nearly every single meal without exception. They are not doing aggressive intermittent fasting. They are not running marathons every morning before work. They are not obsessively counting every calorie they eat. And yet their obesity rate is just 4.5%. The United States sits at over 40%. The United Kingdom is approaching 30% and still climbing. Australia, Canada, Germany, France, most of Europe, all moving in the wrong direction. The gap between Japan and the rest of the developed world is enormous and growing. So what is actually happening inside Japanese bodies that is not happening inside ours? This question changed how I practiced medicine entirely. After years working in emergency medicine and deeply studying metabolic disorders, I began to understand something that most conventional diet advice completely ignores and never addresses. The answer is not in how much the Japanese eat. It is in what they eat alongside their carbohydrates and how those specific foods interact with human biology. More precisely, it is how those foods communicate directly with biological systems your body already has inside it right now. Systems designed specifically to keep you lean. There are specific foods in the traditional Japanese diet that Western nutrition science is only beginning to properly understand and document in peer-reviewed research today. These foods do not simply feed you. They actively instruct your fat cells to release stored energy. They reshape your gut bacteria in ways that suppress appetite hormones naturally. They switch on a hidden fat-burning organ inside your body that most people living in the West have never even heard of before today. And they have been doing all of this consistently, quietly, for centuries. Not because Japanese people discovered some exotic secret unavailable to everyone else on the planet, but simply because they never abandoned the foods that work with human biology rather than constantly fighting against it the way modern Western diets do, every single day. I am Dr. Liana, emergency medicine physician and metabolism researcher. Today, I am going to walk you through the exact science behind all of this clearly. We will cover the specific foods, the precise amounts your body needs, the preparation methods that determine whether any of this actually works inside your body. We will also cover the daily framework that pulls everything together without counting a single calorie, and the critical mistakes that destroy these foods before they ever help you. By the end, you will not just know what to eat. You will understand deeply why it works, well enough to actually follow through and maintain it for life. Let us begin at the root of everything most diet culture has been getting completely wrong for the past several decades without acknowledging it publicly. Most diet advice focuses on one variable only: calories. Eat fewer of them, burn more through exercise, and eventually the math supposedly works in your favor somehow. It sounds rational and simple. It is also one of the most dangerously incomplete frameworks ever applied to human metabolic health on such a massive cultural scale. Because here is what the calorie math ignores entirely every single time. Your gut microbiome and its enormous influence over everything happening in your metabolism daily. Inside your digestive tract right now, there are approximately 38 trillion microorganisms living together. Bacteria, fungi, archaea, forming a complex living ecosystem inside you. These organisms collectively weigh around 1.5 kilograms. And this internal ecosystem is not simply sitting there watching your metabolism happen from a passive distance. It actively participates in how your body processes food, decides where to store fat, regulates your hunger signals, and controls inflammation throughout your entire system. Think of your gut like a massive manufacturing facility running every hour of every day without stopping. On a healthy floor, the workers are efficient and specialized. They extract nutrients with precision. They produce chemical signals that regulate your appetite correctly. They communicate directly with your brain through what scientists call the gut-brain axis. When you eat, these workers process everything coming in and send a clear signal upward. We have what we need. You can comfortably stop eating now. But in most Western guts, after decades of processed food, refined sugar, antibiotic overuse, and fiber stripped from nearly everything on supermarket shelves, that factory is broken. The skilled workers have been slowly replaced by opportunistic bacteria that do the exact opposite of what your body needs them to do for your health. They make you hungrier than you should be. They inflame your intestinal lining constantly. They send corrupted signals to your brain that override your natural fullness responses entirely. And critically, they instruct your body to store incoming energy as fat, specifically as visceral fat, the deep internal fat wrapping around your liver and pancreas. Visceral fat is not the fat you can pinch at your waistline after a large meal. You cannot see it clearly in a mirror. You cannot feel it. But it is metabolically active in the worst possible way. It constantly produces inflammatory proteins called cytokines that drive insulin resistance and slowly damage your blood vessels. These cytokines disrupt your hormonal balance over time and have been clearly linked to cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, cognitive decline, and certain cancers in research. This is precisely why calorie restriction alone fails so consistently over the long term for the majority of people who attempt it with genuine effort and commitment. You can restrict calories aggressively every single day. But if your gut microbiome is still dominated by inflammation-driving, fat-storing bacteria, you are working against your own biology constantly. Here's the insight that shifted everything for me after watching patients struggle and regain weight repeatedly, despite following conventional advice perfectly and sincerely. The traditional Japanese diet is arguably the most powerful gut microbiome optimization diet that has ever existed throughout human dietary history on this planet. Not because it was engineered in a laboratory by scientists, but because it evolved over centuries to naturally include exactly what beneficial gut bacteria need to thrive. Fermented foods, marine omega-3 fatty acids, plant-based fiber sources, and polyphenol-rich compounds that literally reshape your intestinal bacterial ecosystem from the inside out daily. A landmark global analysis examined dietary patterns across 132 countries and found something that genuinely surprised the researchers conducting the study when results came in. The higher a country scored on adherence to traditional Japanese dietary patterns, more fish, fermented soy, seaweed, plant fiber, less red meat and refined dairy, the lower its obesity rate, not slightly lower. Dramatically, statistically, significantly lower. Even after researchers carefully controlled for GDP, healthcare spending, education levels, smoking rates, and physical activity. Countries eating more like Japan were consistently leaner across every continent studied, every type of economy, every demographic group examined in the data. So what specific foods are driving this effect, and what are they actually doing inside the human body at the cellular and molecular level every day? The single most powerful food category in the traditional Japanese diet, the one most consistently linked to measurable metabolic health improvements in research, is fermented food. Not yogurt in the standard Western commercial sense. Not a probiotic capsule purchased from a pharmacy shelf. Natto, Miso, and traditionally brewed fermented soy products eaten for over 1,000 years. Let us start with natto specifically, because nothing else in the entire Japanese diet produces quite the same remarkable and well-documented biological effect on human gut health. Natto is made from soybeans fermented with a bacterium called Bacillus subtilis var. Natto. The result is sticky, pungent, deeply savory, and texturally unlike anything most Westerners have experienced. Most people encountering it for the first time are not immediately enthusiastic about the experience. The texture is stringy, almost elastic, and the flavor is intensely strong. But what natto does inside the human gut is remarkable enough that once you genuinely understand it, the texture becomes a very small and manageable price to pay. Your gut microbiome contains two dominant bacterial families you need to understand: Bacteroidetes and Firmicutes. Their ratio determines enormous amounts about your metabolic health daily. Research consistently shows people with higher Firmicutes relative to Bacteroidetes have higher obesity rates, worse insulin resistance, and more metabolic disease overall compared to leaner individuals. People with higher bacteroidetes populations tend to be leaner and metabolically healthier across multiple studied populations and demographics around the world in the research. Natto directly and measurably shifts that ratio toward the lean, healthy bacterial profile your body is designed to maintain when given the right inputs consistently. A study in the Journal of Molecular Nutrition and Food Research found regular natto intake significantly reduced visceral fat in a clear dose-dependent manner over time. More natto consumed meant more visceral fat reduced. The relationship was linear and measurable. The same research found natto suppressed fatty acid synthesis in the liver simultaneously. It actively instructed the body to stop manufacturing new fat, while simultaneously promoting the breakdown of fat stores that already existed. Both directions working together at once. The part most people miss entirely is that fermentation is what makes all of this biologically possible. Regular plain soybeans eaten without fermentation have very limited bioavailability. They contain compounds called trypsin inhibitors and phytic acid that block digestive enzymes and prevent proper absorption of the key nutrients locked inside the raw soybean. Fermentation dismantles those barriers completely and permanently. It is like the difference between a locked vault and a fully open one containing the same nutritional wealth inside. The same nutrients exist in both the plain and fermented soybean. But fermentation hands your body the key to actually access and use all of them effectively. What comes out of that unlocked vault is a genuinely extraordinary biological package working synergistically inside your intestinal environment every single day you consume it. Bioavailable isoflavones with hormonal balancing properties, nattokinase enzymes with well-documented cardiovascular benefits, vitamin K2 in its most absorbable natural form available from food, and living Bacillus subtilis bacteria that survive stomach acid, unlike most commercial probiotic strains, arriving in your intestines fully alive and immediately ready to begin working. This is precisely why natto consistently outperforms commercial probiotic supplements in clinical research when studied head-to-head under controlled conditions by independent researchers. A supplement gives you one isolated bacterial strain sealed in a capsule manufactured in a factory. Natto gives you the complete and interconnected biological system. The bacteria themselves, the enzymes they produce, the fiber matrix they live within, and the prebiotic compounds that feed and sustain them after they arrive in your gut. Now here is where the story becomes even more interesting, and where most people have a genuine gap in their understanding of their own body's fat-burning capacity. There is an organ inside your body that burns fat as its primary and dedicated fuel, not to move your muscles or power your brain, but purely to generate internal heat. It is called brown adipose tissue, or brown fat, and unlike the white fat accumulating around your waist and organs, brown fat is metabolically active and purposefully productive. It is packed densely with mitochondria, which is what gives it its distinctive darker color compared to standard white fat tissue visible in the body. Its entire biological purpose is thermogenesis, which means burning stored energy continuously to maintain your core body temperature within the precise range your organs need to function. Infants have large amounts of it. It is literally why newborn babies can survive cold exposure that would quickly become dangerous for an unprotected adult in the same conditions. For decades, scientists believed adults lost essentially all of their brown fat by the time they reached full adulthood, and it was simply gone from the body. Then, medical imaging technology advanced significantly, and researchers discovered something that completely changed the understanding of adult human metabolism and fat-burning capacity. Adults retain meaningful and functional deposits of brown adipose tissue, primarily located around the collarbone area, upper chest region, and running along sections of the spine. Critically, this tissue can be activated. It can be biologically stimulated to burn dramatically more energy than it does in its resting, unstimulated baseline state. One specific compound found in green tea, consumed in a way that is uniquely Japanese and dramatically different from how the West typically drinks green tea, is a key activator. That compound is EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate, a catechin polyphenol naturally present in green tea leaves. The Japanese get far more of it than anyone in the West does. The reason comes down entirely to one single word: matcha. When most Westerners drink green tea, they steep a bag in hot water and then throw the leaves away completely. They consume only the water-soluble fraction of what the full tea leaf actually contains. Most of the beneficial compounds remain trapped inside the discarded leaves and never enter the body. Matcha is stone-ground whole tea leaves reduced to a very fine powder. When you drink matcha, you consume the entire leaf and everything it contains without exception. With it comes egg CG in concentrations up to 137 times higher than what you get from a standard brewed cup of bagged green tea steeped in the conventional Western way. That difference is not a minor variation in dosage. It is the complete difference between a therapeutic dose that produces measurable biological change and a trace amount that does essentially nothing. EGC activates brown fat through a specific and well-characterized molecular pathway. It upregulates a protein called UCP1, uncoupling protein 1, which is the on switch for thermogenesis. When UCP1 is activated inside brown fat cells, those cells begin burning stored white fat as fuel to generate heat. Your body consumes its own fat deposits to stay warm internally. This thermogenic process runs continuously in the background of your metabolism when properly activated. It does not require exercise or calorie restriction to function effectively in your body. Researchers at the University of Geneva demonstrated this clearly in a carefully controlled study measuring total 24-hour energy expenditure in subjects under documented laboratory conditions. Subjects consuming green tea extract containing 90 milligrams of EGCG combined with 50 milligrams of caffeine showed a statistically significant 4% increase in daily total calorie burn. Their respiratory quotient dropped measurably from 0.88 to 0. 85, indicating the body was burning a meaningfully higher proportion of stored fat relative to carbohydrates throughout the day. Then the same researchers tested caffeine alone at the identical dose given to the other group. The result was clear and unambiguous and important for understanding what is actually happening. Zero effect on metabolic rate. Not a reduced effect. Not a partial effect. Zero. The catechins were doing all the meaningful metabolic work, and caffeine contributed nothing independently. The third mechanism is perhaps less immediately dramatic than activating a hidden fat-burning organ, but in terms of consistent daily impact on body composition, it may matter most. The traditional Japanese diet delivers extraordinary amounts of dietary fiber from seaweed, root vegetables, fermented plant foods, barley, and soy, in both soluble and insoluble forms. When soluble fiber reaches your colon, your gut bacteria ferment it and produce compounds called short-chain fatty acids. The most important of these for metabolic health is called butyrate. Butyrate is not a minor side note in the story of metabolic health. It is a powerful signaling molecule doing two things of critical and measurable importance inside your body daily. First, it reinforces your intestinal barrier. The single-cell thick wall separating everything inside your gut from your bloodstream requires constant maintenance and repair to function correctly. When this barrier is compromised, a condition scientists call intestinal permeability, bacterial fragments and inflammatory molecules escape into your circulation and trigger systemic inflammation throughout your body. That systemic inflammation drives insulin resistance directly, disrupts the appetite hormones that should be regulating your hunger accurately, and actively promotes fat storage around your organs. Butyrate repairs and actively maintains that barrier continuously, preventing the inflammatory leak from happening in the first place, rather than trying to treat the downstream consequences later. Second, butyrate signals your brain through the gut-brain axis to reduce appetite, not the temporary willpower-driven suppression of hunger you feel when consciously trying to eat less. Genuine hormonal satiety, the natural kind where you finish a satisfying meal and simply feel no desire for more food. Not discipline, your body sending the correct signal accurately. A study from the Fukuoka Diabetes Registry examining over 4,300 Japanese participants found higher dietary fiber intake independently associated with lower BMI, lower fasting glucose, and lower triglycerides. Lower markers of systemic inflammation were also documented across the group, even after carefully adjusting for total calorie intake, age, sex, and physical activity levels throughout the analysis. Here is precisely what to eat, the exact amounts to use, and how to prepare each food so beneficial compounds survive and actually reach your bloodstream in functional form. Eat 50 grams of natto daily, approximately one small traditional Japanese serving pack. Have it at breakfast with rice. If the texture is difficult initially, add soy sauce and Japanese mustard. That is exactly the traditional way it is eaten throughout Japan every morning. The Bacillus subtilis bacteria withstand stomach acid and arrive in your intestines alive and fully active. Frozen natto from Asian grocery stores works equally well if you cannot find fresh locally. The bacteria reactivate completely after the package has thawed and are just as effective. Drink 1 to 2 teaspoons of ceremonial-grade matcha powder daily, approximately 2 to 3 grams total. Whisk it into water, heated to exactly 175 degrees Fahrenheit, never boiling water. Boiling water denatures up to 60% of the ACG before it reaches your digestive system at all. You would be destroying the primary compound you are specifically trying to deliver to your body. Add fresh lemon juice to your matcha every time. Research shows this increases ACG absorption by up to 6 times because vitamin C protects catechins from degradation during digestion. Never add cow's milk to matcha. Casein proteins in dairy bind directly to catechins and reduce their absorption by up to 80% before they can do anything beneficial inside your body. Have 1 bowl of miso soup daily made from unpasteurized miso paste specifically. This single distinction matters enormously, and most people buying miso get it completely wrong without realizing it. Pasteurized miso has been heat-treated to extend its shelf life in stores. That heat kills every single beneficial bacterial culture the fermentation process spent weeks carefully creating inside the paste. Dissolve 1 tablespoon of unpasteurized miso in warm water or dashi broth after fully removing the pot from any heat source. Add wakame seaweed, silken tofu, and scallions to complete it. Eat 5 to 10 grams of dried wakame or kombu seaweed 3 to 4 times every week. Seaweed contains a carotenoid compound called fucoxanthin, studied specifically for its effects on visceral fat. Fucoxanthin targets the deep abdominal fat specifically, not subcutaneous surface fat, by increasing UCP1 expression in white adipose tissue and pushing those cells toward a fat-burning phenotype. Eat 3 servings of fatty fish weekly. Salmon, mackerel, or sardines with a minimum of 284 milligrams of combined EPA and DA omega-3 fatty acids per serving for meaningful effect. Always grill, bake, or steam your fish. Deep frying at high temperatures oxidizes and completely destroys the omega-3 fatty acids and replaces them with inflammatory omega-6 oils from the cooking medium. Eat 30 to 50 grams of naturally fermented pickled vegetables daily. Look for lacto-fermented varieties with live cultures listed on the label. Vinegar pickles do not contain live bacterial cultures. Replace white rice with a barley rice blend in a 70-30 ratio at least once daily. Barley's beta-glucan fiber feeds butyrate-producing bacteria, delivering the intestinal barrier and appetite benefits described earlier. The framework pulling all of these foods into a coherent daily system matters just as much as the individual foods themselves when it comes to producing consistent, measurable results over time. Drink your matcha 30 minutes before your largest meal. The catechins prime brown adipose tissue for thermogenic activation precisely when your body needs to process its highest caloric load. Structure meals using Ichiju Sansai, 1 soup and 3 sides, 1 miso soup, 1 protein source, 2 vegetable sides, and rice. No calorie counting required because the structure manages portions automatically. Spread your fermented foods across all 3 meals throughout the day. Natto at breakfast, miso at lunch, pickled vegetables at dinner. This delivers a continuous beneficial bacterial supply to your gut. Eat dinner by 7 or 8 in the evening and breakfast around 7 in the morning. This creates a natural 11 to 12 hour overnight fasting window without requiring any deliberate fasting strategy or effort. Practice Hara Hachi Bu, stopping eating at around 80% full and waiting. The satiety signal from your gut takes 20 minutes to reach your brain after you have started eating. When you stop at 80%, that signal arrives and you feel comfortably satisfied rather than stuffed or deprived. Practice daily. This naturally reduces caloric intake by 15 to 20% without effort. Your gut microbiome takes 4 to 8 weeks of consistent daily input to meaningfully restructure itself. Natto eaten a few times produces no measurable change. Consistency is the entire mechanism here. Boiling water destroys both matcha and miso. 175 degrees Fahrenheit for matcha, always. Miso added only after the pot has been fully removed from the heat source without exception. Whole natto delivers nattokinase, bacillus subtilis, isoflavones, soluble fiber, and vitamin K2 working together synergistically. A nattokinase capsule delivers 1 isolated enzyme and nothing else of value. If your waist shrinks by an inch but the scale stays the same, you are succeeding. You are losing visceral fat and gaining denser lean muscle. Measure your waist weekly, not your weight. Gaining weight as you age is not biologically inevitable. Metabolic decline is not hardwired permanently into your genetic code regardless of your family history or current health status. We know this with absolute certainty because of what happens when Japanese people move to Western countries and adopt Western dietary patterns completely within a single generation of migration. Their obesity rates rise to match their new neighbors within one generation. The protection was never inside their dina. It was always in the food, sitting on their table every morning. The people maintaining lean, metabolically healthy bodies into their 70s, 80s, and 90s are not suffering through extreme dietary restriction or running on pure willpower daily. They are providing their bodies consistently with the specific biological inputs that the systems designed to keep them healthy actually need to function the way they were designed to function. A diverse and thriving gut microbiome. Active brown adipose tissue burning stored fat as heat. Low systemic inflammation, not driving fat storage and insulin resistance throughout their organs continuously. Every single one of those biological systems exists inside your body right now today. They are not broken beyond any possibility of repair. They are not reserved for people with different genetics. They are waiting for the right signals to arrive. And those signals come from your plate 3 times a day, every day, not from a pharmacy or a fad or a supplement bottle. You have far more control over your own metabolic health than the entire weight loss industry has ever wanted you to understand or believe about your own body and its capabilities. Japan's 4.5% obesity rate is driven by dietary composition alone, confirmed by a global study of 132 countries controlling for every major socioeconomic variable researchers could account for in the data. Natto reshapes your microbiome, reduces visceral fat in a dose-dependent manner, and delivers a complete biological package no commercial supplement can come close to replicating for you. Matcha activates brown fat through UCP1 upregulation, measurably increases 24-hour energy expenditure, and shifts your body toward fat-burning metabolism when prepared and consumed correctly every day. Miso, seaweed, fatty fish, fermented pickles, and barley rice each contribute distinct and additive layers to your gut diversity, brown fat activity, and systemic inflammation levels over time. Structure your meals with Ichiju Sansai. Stop at 80% full every single time. Spread fermented foods across all 3 meals daily. Maintain your natural overnight eating window without forcing it. Your metabolic health is not a fixed destination determined by your age, your history, or your genetics. It responds directly and measurably to what you feed it every single day. You are not too far gone. You have not missed the window for meaningful change. The research is clear, the foods are accessible, and your own biology is completely on your side. The only real question left is what will actually be sitting on your breakfast table when you wake up tomorrow morning and decide to begin.